Welcome friends to another r/IDontWorkHereLady video. You ever try buying drinks from a 14-year-old? Well, a Karen in an upcoming story tries to. But first, a story by Roberta Beauregard. I don't work here. Well, you should, and you should get a raise too. Reading about some wholesome stories reminded me of this one. It's sort of wholesome, I think. I work for a company that gives me pretty good security and decent benefits. I had this throughout the entirety of the health crisis. I'm also lactose intolerant. Yes, they're connected to the story, I promise. I was running low on the most magical of little pills that allow me to enjoy the lactic lady of dairy delights without feeling like I'd been run over by a herd of donkeys afterwards. I knew I could buy these at the local health food and vitamin type shop near home, so off I toddle to ensure the enjoyment of a dose of cheddar later. This was during a time when the shop only allowed a certain number of people in at a time. An older lady was peering in and struck up a conversation with me. I'm not sick, I promise. I've just been feeling a bit run down is all. I sympathized and told her I was just popping in for one thing, and she was welcome to go ahead of me. Oh no, says she. I don't even know what I need. I just need something to perk me up. My mother, being a very holistic type of woman, liked to tell me all the benefits of various tinctures and herbs that would change my life. She gave up on these when it became clear nothing could cure my terrible sense of humor, but I digress. My mother swears by evening primrose oil, I said. It may be worth a try if you want just a little something in general, though I can't promise results as this is all secondhand information. Her eyes lit up, her mouth opened. It was as though I pulled a rabbit out of a hat, then started playing jazz with it. That's it, that's what I wanted. I'd forgotten the name. She couldn't thank me enough. I'd had a moment of brilliance, and she was determined to let me know how grateful she was. A couple people stepped out, so we were both welcomed inside, where she immediately asked me where one might find evening primrose oil. I said I'm not sure. I'm afraid I don't work here, but if I had to guess, I'd think they'd be with the other supplements over there. It wasn't a large shop, and I vaguely knew where stuff was. With the employee distracted by the only other customer checking out, I thought it made sense to help the older lady figure things out. She went to questing for her oil. I traversed the aisles for my pills and, lo, did get them. When she popped her head up again and saw me checking out at the till, she called out to the employee, "She deserves a raise, you know. She's very good at her job. She's been so helpful." The employee and I chuckled as I reiterated that I didn't work there, but appreciated the sentiment. I finished the transaction as the older lady absorbed this information. She wasn't sure what to think. She'd been so certain. This was the only way she knew to show her appreciation, unless... Her face broke out in a beam of determination as she looked towards the actual employee and thus spoke, "Well, she should have a job, and she deserves a pay raise." "Thank you for that, but I already have a job." "It's a nice thought though," I said, already heading back to the front doors. "But you're so good at this one. Go on, offer her a job. You wouldn't regret it, you know." I all but leapt through the doors as the poor employee did her best to promise the woman that they weren't trying to avoid offering me a job. It just didn't seem like I wanted one. And yes, they were just as good as me, and yes, they promised they would offer me a job again if I ever pop in. Just please let them ring her up, etc., etc. Definitely a happy ending for me though. I got a delicious cheesy pasta dinner. If you found yourself in a situation like this, and the person was there trying to advocate for them to offer a job to you, would you be able to handle that conversation and traverse through it? Or would it be too much for you? Maybe make you cringe too much and want to make you get out of there as fast as possible, basically like OP did? Let me know what side you'd fall on in the comments down below. Our next story is by Cheesy Baked Potato 2. I do, but currently don't work here, Karen. So this is the first time I've really had an I don't work here moment, and it's a little different from most because, most unfortunately, I do work there, but I'm currently off due to a recent biopsy / being on holiday, so apologies if this doesn't fit in here. So a couple days ago, I decided to head into the shop I work at to get some things for dinner, seeing as it's cheaper with my employee discount than having it ordered in. I'm also on the days where I'm expected to start being mobile, but not to do too much heavy lifting, so I wasn't going in for a lot. I'm in the most obvious non-uniform outfit possible, a pair of loose-fitting cotton trousers that honestly could pass as PJ pants, and an oversized black hoodie. I looked like I'd just blown in from off the street honestly, but didn't give a darn at this point, so it's clear I wasn't in to work. However, most regulars can recognize me easily because I have multicolored hair and no one else really looks like a unicorn puked a galaxy on their head. I had my AirPods in as I was wandering around, or waddled in my case really, when I stopped to chat to one of my colleagues who was in. We talked about how my biopsy went, if I was in pain, etc., before she quickly asked me where something was. She's still a very new colleague. I told her, stuck my AirPods back in, and an old lady shuffled away. A couple minutes later, I'm down the pet food aisle wanting to get treats for my puppy when I feel harsh tapping on my shoulder. I jump a tad and end up twinging my biopsy site a little, so now I'm in mild discomfort. Looking over, I see one of the most hated regulars. She's always a Karen who seems to wake up and choose violence on a daily basis. There's always problems with her, and honestly, I would rather stand toe-to-toe with the Balrog on speed than deal with her any day. I pull out an AirPod and hear that she's already mid-rant about how rude I am for ignoring her. She's been after my attention for 5 minutes. What kind of employee am I? I can help out a coworker but not a customer and blah blah blah. When she finally finishes her tirade, she points to one of the heavy bags of cat litter on the top shelf and demands I get it down for her. I calmly explain that I'm not allowed to do any heavy lifting at the moment, and as I'm not actually working, I'm not allowed to anyway as per the store policy, due to the fact that the top shelves are for storage and require footstools to reach, with the not so subtle suggestion of go get someone else. Well, this winged strumpet is having none of it, demanding I help her as she knows I work here. If I don't, she'll get a manager. I'm just making up a BS excuse not to help her, yada yada. So while she's mid-rant, I simply grab the treats and walk away. I duck into the crisp aisle where thankfully I bump into my boss. I quickly explain how I've pissed off our resident Karen just as she catches up and demands my help again. My manager thankfully stepped in and told her how I'm not obligated to help off the clock, while making a small gesture to me to just get the freak out of there, which I happily do, all the while she's getting more and more pissed and insistent that I get the sack for refusing to help her. I get to the till and have a quick giggle about it with my work friend who was serving, then got the heck out of Dodge before I could experience the return of the Karen on my way out. I know it's not that exciting, but thought you might enjoy. Honestly, there's a myriad of details that go on here that make you just astounded at how dumb these Karens can be. Whether it's the simple fact that OP says they're not on the clock, which is like, for most average people, more than enough, to literally wearing almost pajama clothing. Also, that brings up a really good question I was curious about. If you're going into the store quick to grab something, is it a really bad look to wear slippers or your pajama pants? Like, let's say you're going to the nearest store, you're probably not going to be in there for more than 5 minutes because you know what you're looking for. Is it just too weird to do? Let me know what you guys think. Our next story is from CGI Xolek, Home Depot. Almost forgot about my experience, but I saw another Home Depot one and something clicked. So a few years ago, I was at Home Depot with my dad getting mulch and compost to fill in a flower bed, right? So I'm wearing a white t-shirt, some khaki, sneakers, and an undone blue-white button-up plaid shirt with the sleeves rolled to my elbows. I know you all love to hear what we're wearing at the time. No orange whatsoever, save for a bit of accenting on my shoes, nor anything even remotely formal or uniform-esque, right? So I'm heading outside to get another cart. My dad was filling another one, and as I'm approaching the door, a woman asks if I can help her get something off the top shelf. Not in any big rush right then, so I figure I'll grab it on my way out the door, and do so. She thanks me, and I resume my trek, heading out the door and grabbing a cart. I'm heading back inside when I hear the call of the wild Karen. Although I don't recognize it immediately, to me it sounded like someone violently vomiting and gasping at the same time. So I look over to the woman beside me and say very simply, "Excuse you." Apparently this was a mistake, because now I hear a sound that very distinctly sounds of indignation and disgust, and the woman, whom is sporting an uneven flock of seagulls cut hairstyle hidden behind vibrant neon green sunglasses, seems to snarl before asking, "Where's the sinks?" Keep in mind we're outside in the garden center, so I reply as kindly as I can, "I'm sure there's signs inside. Try walking around and see if you spot any," and I move to walk away. "Don't walk away from me," she shrieks. So I glance over, confused as she demands to see my manager. "Ma'am, I I don't work here, I say, gesturing to my attire. Don't lie to me, you lazy jerk. Even though you're off the clock, you should always represent the company, she says. Okay, I said before purposely walking away. I knew this was a bad decision, but I figured anyone she could get would have more than her 2 brain cells. I returned to my dad and started loading up my cart, hoping she wouldn't be right behind me, but you can see where the story's heading. So you run away from me and start helping him, the Karen says? This whole store's so sexist. I'm paraphrasing here because her actual words were intense. So my dad explains that I don't work at the store, and she refuses to listen. I saw you helping that other woman, she shrieks. At this point, my dad's eyes narrow. I'm sorry, he says, sighing visibly. But the only reason that you have for why my son works here is because he helped another woman? She nods. What sort of world do we live in, he says, that you cannot accept the fact that a person can, without any prospect of reward or profit, help another person simply out of the kindness of their heart? She stares daggers back at him and mumbles about managers and security. At this point, my dad pulls out his FBI badge and simply looks at the color draining from her face. Then my dad did something that surprised me. He helped me wheel the carts out to the checkout line, handed me his credit card, and wordlessly went to help the lady find the sinks. Can't believe that I almost forgot this happened, but I'm glad I didn't. I must say, it must feel like a very powerful trump card to be able to know that your dad at any time can just pull out an FBI badge and show it. If anybody's giving them crap, even if it's like over somebody claiming they don't know something, they can just go FBI badge, flip that out, and I feel like anybody's going to be like, oh, okay, all right, you win. Our next story is by Sino557. I don't really work here, but happy to help. I used to work in a warehouse of one very big furniture store in Europe. Think IKEA, but less Swedish. The warehouse people and the salespeople in the shop had different uniforms and are clearly distinguishable. One day, I decided that I would look for a new bed in one of our stores after I finished my work in the warehouse. So I went in, still wearing my warehouse clothes. It had the store logo on my shirt, but it was clear that I don't work on the sales floor and I was dirty from working all day. An old lady came up to me and asked me a lot of stuff about the furniture, like, how much does the table cost? Do you have them in stock? How long do I have to wait to get it if I buy it today? And so on. Because I helped out from time to time in the store when they were short-staffed, I know my way around there, and I also know how to use our internal software. I decided I would just look the stuff up for her. So I jumped on the terminal, logged in, and told her everything that I could find out. After a while, she found a table she wanted to buy, and I had to tell her that although I could sell it to her, I'm not allowed to because I don't really work in the store or as a salesperson in general. She was very embarrassed and scolded me for not telling her sooner. I shrugged it off and told her I had time and was happy to help, and I'd be glad to find her someone who could really sell her the table. Aftermath, I didn't find a bed I liked, but I talked to the store manager, who I still knew from his time as a warehouse manager for a bit, and he told me that the old lady praised me for helping her, and she told him that he should give me a raise. I didn't get the raise, but he bought me a coffee, which is still nice. I love that in the aftermath, the boss was like, yeah, she said you deserved a raise. Ho ho ho, I'll buy you a coffee at least. And our final story of the day is by Asperder Magique. Karen gets mad because I'm not an employee in an alcohol-only store. Was 14 at the time. One day when I was 14 and looked way younger, I was with my dad in SAQ, an alcohol-only store, and as my dad looked at some wine bottles, I wandered around, looking at some bottles with pretty labels. I was wearing a bright pink shirt and a skirt. I had no fashion sense, and the store's employees wore dark red shirts and black pants. This lady walks up to me and asks where the vodka and rum were located. I didn't understand at first and just told her I didn't know. She looked insulted and in a semi-yelling voice told me, well, you should know that. You should try to be more respectful and help me. Confused, I just answered, well, I don't know where the vodka or the rum are, and I'm confused as to why I should know that and how it's disrespectful. She was pissed. She started yelling that I should know the store better and should be more polite, and how she was going to call the manager, and then stormed off. At that point, my father heard a part of the conversation and came to me asking what happened. I told him, and he looked as confused as me. The lady came back with a man in a store uniform and a tie. The lady's now red and angry. She's telling him about how his employees are rude and don't know anything. The man looks at me and starts laughing, along with my dad and me. I asked her, "You really thought I worked here? I'm not even old enough to drive, let alone drink." She looked shocked, then offended. She stormed away without buying anything. Had a great laugh. It's definitely a funny little moment, but I kind of wonder if in that moment, that manager was a little sad that they got shocked and went out, because they very clearly lost out on some kind of sale that was almost guaranteed with a Karen like that. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.